Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we're talking about celebrity chef and filmmaker Anthony Bourdain, who was tragically found dead in his hotel room last week. According to CNN, he was 61 and took his own life. The article here goes on to give a glowing and highly sympathetic take on Bourdain's rise in media and his eventual fall by suicide. And it makes sense for CNN and most of the mainstream media to go easy on the guy. He was one of them. Bourdain was a host and employee of CNN's for years, and he pretty much fit into all their stereotypes too, namely being old, gray-haired, Jewish, and anti-Trump. Oh, and he also was buddy-buddy with former President Barack Hussein Obama. But it gets even worse than that. Anthony also went the extra mile and shit on white people every chance he could, including banning them from his shows and saying the world would be better off without us. That's right. And I'm white, and I'm here to say, that's okay. It's okay to be white, guys, and it's great even. So when I see a starkly anti-white, anti-Trump person go down, I'm certainly less likely to sympathize with them, especially considering this Anthony Bourdain death was a self-inflicted suicide. With all that said, I don't want to necessarily shit on the guy either, but I can't help but bring up some of these things one last time before everyone forgets and buys into the new angle the media is pushing with Bourdain's story. And to be fair, think about how this guy and CNN would react if one of our conservative leaders passed away. If Trump or Ivanka died, God forbid, but if it happened, you better believe the lefties like Bourdain and CNN would be basking in that. It would be a big win for them, and they certainly wouldn't be making any nice, friendly, glowing review articles after they were gone. In fact, they would hope for a death in the Trump family. Bourdain himself even said he would poison Donald given the opportunity. Yeah, so needless to say, there's a lot more to Anthony Bourdain than what his lefty friends and co-workers at CNN lead on. We're going to go over the whole story today. Bourdain's troubled backstory, his rise in popularity, and all the times he chose to take that popularity and use it to shit on white people and conservatives. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's start with the beginning. Anthony Michael Bourdain was an American celebrity chef, author, travel documentarian, and television personality who starred in programs focusing on the exploration of international culture, cuisine, and the human condition. He was considered one of the most influential chefs in the world by many commentators. Supposedly, Bourdain says he was raised without religion while growing up in Leonia, New Jersey. But his father was Catholic and his mother Jewish, and Jewish was the faith and ethnicity Bourdain would go on to claim later in life. Times weren't easy for Bourdain though, especially in the early years of his cooking career, nor were they easy in his personal life either. A former user of cocaine, heroin, and LSD, in Kitchen Confidential, Bourdain wrote of his experience in a trendy Soho restaurant in 1981. We were high all the time, sneaking off to the walk-in refrigerator at every opportunity to conceptualize. Hardly a decision was made without drugs. Cannabis, methaqualone, cocaine, LSD, psilocybin mushrooms soaked in honey and used to sweeten tea, secobarbital, tuiano, amphimethadine, codeine, and increasingly heroin, which we'd send a Spanish-speaking busboy over to Alphabet City to get. Needless to say, Anthony struggled with addictions for years, eventually kicking drugs altogether in the late 80s, but one could wonder if these psychological, addiction, personality problems could have affected him later in life again. They do say once an addict, always an addict, and controversially, unlike most former addicts who quit, Bourdain himself famously still chose to drink, despite the doctors and the health professionals' best wishes. Now, I don't know if drinking was involved in the night he killed himself, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised. Bourdain had a troubled family life as well, and he left behind 2 ex-wives and his new sexy Italian actress and model girlfriend, Asia Argento. How he could leave this hottie behind is beyond me. And that's not even mentioning the 11-year-old daughter he left behind. How a man could commit suicide while he has a young child running around is also very much beyond me, but I do suspect the guy was either high or drunk out of his mind when he hung himself. That or he really has no excuse, and he was really even a worse person than we thought. And also, unfortunately, it sounds like Anthony wasn't that great of a father to begin with. Besides, of course, providing lots of money from his lucrative travel job, his work reportedly kept him away from home and his family up to 250 days out of the year. That's tough. But that's quite enough of Bourdain's troubling backstory. Let's go ahead and move forward to some of his more recent, more offensive takes in the media. First, we got a story from April 2017 in which Anthony Bourdain bans white people from his show in Houston. That's right. Outright racial intolerance and bigotry, and it's being liked and promoted by the media to boot. Let's read the story a bit and see what's going on. Anthony Bourdain received plenty of love for the unconventional Houston episode of his popular CNN TV series Parts Unknown. The episode's diversity was particularly praised. It turns out the bad boy chef turned travel savant achieved that with one simple edict: no white people, Bourdain told producers about his vision for highlighting Houston, according to a recent New Yorker magazine profile. As Paper City's own Jalen Marcel pointed out, when the Houston Parts Unknown first aired, none of the city's celebrity chefs even sniffed a bit of airtime. Turns out most of them never had a chance to get on. Foodie power players such as Chris Shepard, Brian Caswell, and Ronnie Killen were out from the moment Bourdain Bourdain issued his "No White People" command. Looks like the supposed diversity the show was going for was actually just the usual anti-white. Diversity equals no white people. At least that's what the left-wingers have been going with lately. Bourdain literally himself said "no white people" when he was trying to make his show more diverse. You really can't make this shit up, guys. And you know what? I honestly wouldn't mind it so much if they just worded it honestly and accurately. I don't care if Bourdain doesn't want white people at his show. Have all the blacks and browns you want. Makes no difference to me. But when these cultural Marxists play word games and label it as diversity, that's where I start to take issue. Make no mistake, diversity is code for anti-white or less white people. And I'm sick of the left getting away with using this euphemistic weasel word to manipulate everybody. It's propaganda tactics and I don't like it. Now, you're going to notice two things that come up here and in the other two Bourdain stories we're getting to later. First of all, it's the hypocritical double standard. Anthony gets away with saying no whites at his show. Hell, he gets praised for doing it. But if a show did the same thing with blacks or browns, we would never hear the end of it. That would never happen, in fact. If a show's host said no black people, he would get fired on the spot. Yet here we go. Here we got Bourdain doing the same racist thing to white people, and he's getting praised for it. Next, there's just the general anti-white sentiment coming from Bourdain, a Jewish American from New Jersey. He's presumably white himself, but I'm not sure if he considers it that way. Really, if he did consider himself white, he certainly hates himself, but I suspect he may be one of those "hello my fellow Americans" type of Jewish people, the ones who pretend to be white in public, so they can openly denounce white people as if they're one of them themselves, and they get away with it every chance they can. I mean, Bourdain didn't say no Jewish people at a show, did he? And I doubt he would have wanted it that way, and I doubt he would have gotten away with saying that. Next, we move forward to September 2017, where Anthony Bourdain said he would poison President Trump if given the chance. I guess Anthony has taken a page from Kathy Griffin's book. They both did work at CNN after all, and they've both publicly fantasized about killing our president. The story reads as follows. Anthony Bourdain, host of Parts Unknown on CNN, said last week that he would poison Donald Trump if the celebrity chef was asked to cater a peace summit between the president and Kim Jong-un. Hemlock, Bourdain simply replied when asked by TMZ what he would serve Trump and the North Korean dictator. Hemlock is a poisonous plant that has been used as a method of execution. The video was published by TMZ last week, but is just now gaining attention. When reached by Fox News, Bourdain, apparently joking, said that he meant to say kale instead of hemlock. Now, obviously this was a joke, but let's focus on the double standard here once again. Do you guys think a television host would get away with saying this about Obama? Because I sure don't. I don't think any actor who likes their job would say anything close to joking about killing Obama. Yet here we got Bourdain doing the very same thing to Donald Trump. Many celebrities have joked repeatedly about killing Trump, and frankly, it's getting old real fast. It makes them look sad, desperate, and bitter about losing in 2016 too. CNN recently fired Kathy Griffin for posing with a bloody head made to look like Trump. The liberal network also cut ties with Believer host Reza Aslan after his anti-Trump rhetoric on Twitter was widely criticized. It's unclear if Bourdain would suffer any consequences for his rhetoric, but it's worth noting that Parts Unknown is significantly more popular than programs hosted by Griffin and Aslan. And as it turned out, Bourdain kept his job up until his death, probably because he was way more popular, sure, and let's be honest, him being Jewish probably helped too. Lastly, let's end with a clip from Bourdain's show, Parts Unknown, on CNN.
So Cologne, proud of its attitude towards artists, different cultures. Germany's accepted somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million refugees. How do you realistically say, welcome to Germany, and we're all going to learn to live together? Can that be done?
If you can't tell already, we're about to get into some really radical left-wing pro-immigration garbage. It's probably no surprise Bourdain's pro-immigration at this point, but this clip really drives the point home as to why they would want to support policies that encourage unfettered importation of black and brown foreigners.
It could be done, of course, but I hope that all the right-wing people will not develop. And this is, for example, a job for an artist. Maybe we should go out 100 people with Nazi uniforms and walk through the city. Maybe this kind of actions will just make the people remind on the time and what our grandfathers did wrong.
That sounds like a terrible idea, but to be fair, Germans aren't exactly known for their senses of humor. Their beer and bratwurst and schnitzels are great. They have awesome food and some really hot ladies too, but their comedy skills are certainly lacking.
We really have to take care that we don't fall back in this structures.
But we kind of are.
We are on
I
the
don't
way.
mean
We are
here necessarily. We're well on our way.
We're well on our way to falling back to Nazi times? Where the fuck are you getting this from, Anthony? The only thing I can think of is the recent rise of conservatives, right-wingers, and Trump, which liberals and CNN's inaccurately compare to Nazis. We're not. We're just patriotic, God-fearing Americans who don't want to see our country invaded and taken over by black and brown immigrants, or taken over by the Jews and other Marxists.
It's a kind of utopia, just the fact that the whole world will mix up with each other, that in, I don't know, 70, 80 years, there will be no white people anymore and only cappuccino-colored people.
Look, that's the only way.
This
is the only solution. It's my way of thinking.
mix up.
It's our only hope. Is our way out of this.
You heard it here, folks. Bourdain says it's our only way. Our only hope or way out of this is to hope there are no more white people in the future. Pretty strong, aggressive, and racist language. I didn't know hoping for white genocide was acceptable for American television, but this is CNN, so I guess I shouldn't be too surprised at this point.
Yes.
It's going to take some time, but it's really the only way. This sort of Singaporean model where everybody's so mixed up that you really don't know who to hate because everybody's so hopelessly intertwined, but we're a long way from that.
And there you have it. Whether this part just slipped out after a few beers, or maybe Bourdain and CNN just have gotten so brazen they don't even know how radical and far gone they are anymore. Regardless, that's Anthony Bourdain, hoping for the end of the white race to come in around 70 years. This is the secret goal we suspected the leftists and Marxists have had for years, so it is a bit satisfying to hear them say it out loud, so clearly. And it's also a little scary and unsettling. I mean, can you imagine if someone on TV said, eventually the Jews will mix into society and become no more in around 70 years? What if someone suggested black people would be non-existent in a couple decades? I don't think either of these ideas would fly at all, and that means neither should the anti-white ones. Funny how Jewish people like Anthony Bourdain can cheer on and hope for the end of the white race, live and on cable television. They're really the only people who can do or get away with this kind of racism publicly. It probably helps that CNN is run and owned by them. Hell, they could even be the ones telling Bourdain to say this bullshit. And people are really surprised there's a rise in anti-Semitism lately. I mean, I'm not for it. I have nothing against Jews or white people or black people or browns. I have nothing against any races, but if you are curious why anti-Semitism is rising and happening, it's because people are saying shit like Anthony Bourdain is here. Anthony Bourdain is cheering on the end of the white race, and it sure sounds pretty controversial to me and racist. So I don't blame people who hate him for this. I personally didn't mind the guy too much. I really didn't think much of Bourdain to begin with, but once I saw he died and then everyone was kissing his ass left and right this weekend, I felt I had to stand up and say my 2 cents about this and open people's eyes about the true history of him. And let's not forget, Bourdain didn't die from an accident or from cancer or old age or something. He didn't have a sympathetic death. He killed himself and left behind ex-wives, a girlfriend, and a child. So I really have no qualms with bringing up some of his legacy of anti-white bigotry. People deserve to know the full truth about Bourdain before he receives his final judgment. What do you guys think? Was Bourdain's suicide a big upset for you? Did you watch his show? Do you think he might have relapsed or was super drunk when it happened? And what do you think about his anti-white hate and his threats to kill Donald Trump? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. See y'all next time.